Naruto, killing system turns Hidan into legend. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 76. Not only the other candidates couldn't stand it, but even the students of the flying section, Shino and Inuzuka, were a little hot, and they thought to themselves, the teacher is too shameless, you must stay away from him in the future, and you can't be damaged by him. Compared with the incomprehension and dissatisfaction in the hearts of ordinary candidates, some people seemed to be a little brain dead, and they actually learned to fly the section, and walked in front of Moriyabiki with the exam paper, and also looked high-spirited. I did it, if I make a wrong question, hee. This brainless candidate did not have the gloomy face of Moriyabiki at all, while the other candidates looked at him gloatingly, making you pretend. This candidate naturally can't see Seniibiki's gloomy face, because his nostrils are about to rise to the sky. He just thinks, others can do it, why can't I times. Not only can, I have to be more pretentious than him, let everyone see that I am the most powerful candidate times. Sanabi smiled happily, looking at this guy in front of him who didn't have a long brain with an unkind face. My secret interrogation minister, everyone can bully? What a green onion do you have? Others speak by strength, then I have to obey, you especially want strength without strength, you still look so ugly, is this coming to find death? All the examinees, looking at Moriyabiki's already impatient appearance, observed a silence for the examinee who did not have long brains for 3 minutes, and then, what they guessed happened. Psychic torture house. Moriyabiki directly used his mastery, the torture room, which was full of all kinds of torture instruments for interrogation, and even with a trace of blood, which made people shudder, and the candidate was locked up and disappeared into the classroom. Duan also looked at the scene in front of him with a confused face. He didn't expect that there was actually such a jumping student, who dared to provoke Seniibiki. I don't know how to write dead words. He didn't have the slightest consciousness at all, and didn't think that this problem was caused by himself. After all, Duan thought that he was not comparable to these little guys at all. He just thought that this was a group of little fart children, but he didn't consider that he seemed to be only 16 years old. We are not convinced. Why treat us differently? Duan was speechless. There were actually people who continued to provoke Moriyabiki. It was really fatal. Duan turned his head and found that it was 2 people with the same forehead protection as the guy who was arrested by Seniibiki. It turned out to be a team, no wonder they are all so brain-dead, Duan thought speechlessly. As for the other candidates, they all looked at the 2 of them mockingly, looking like they were sitting and waiting for a good show to be staged. Sure enough, Moriyabiki did not let them down, the instantaneous technique was launched, and in a blink of an eye, he kicked the 2 to the ground, and it was not too easy to deal with 2 soy sauces who were not even Chinese ninja. Moriyabiki threw the 2 directly out of the window, and then looked at the students in the examination room with a gloomy face, and said coldly, is there anyone else who is not convinced? There was silence in the examination room, no one spoke. They were all people who came to the exam with their brains, and those 3 guys were not a species at all. Humph. Morinibi snorted coldly, if you don't have the corresponding strength, don't do anything beyond your own strength. This is also a taboo as a ninja, and I hope you can take it as a warning. Moriyabiki said such words, but it made a few people like a few guys from the Sand Waterfall era and Oto Ninja Village, and their eyes looked at Duan, and their eyes flashed with a strange light. Lua whispered softly, the corresponding strength? It seems that this guy is also very interesting. These people are not fools. Seniibiki has already pointed out that the strength of the flying segment exceeds him. In order to get such a privilege, then the flying segment will definitely become the most powerful enemy in their next exam, and they have imprinted the characteristics of the flying segment in their minds, thinking that they must avoid this guy. After all, even the proctor thinks that he is not an opponent, so how scary is this guy? As soon as he saw that the people around him looked at his expression, Duan was in a bad mood instantly, but he was playing the necessary skills of the protagonist, playing a pig and eating a tiger. Now Moriyabiki has exposed himself like this. How to play? Everyone knows that your strength is already likely to far exceed the middle shinobi. Will you stupidly run over to bring you dishes? Obviously impossible. As soon as he thought of this, Duan's gaze was fixed on Moriyabiki's body. It was all this guy's trouble. Duan did not regard himself as the culprit at all. The evil god must have the temperament of the evil god. I say you are wrong, then you are wrong. Moriyabiki only felt cold, looked up, and found that the Fong was staring at him deadly, and that gaze was even more eager to eat himself, making him look confused, revealing a bitter melon color. I am looking for who to mess with. Quickly lowered his head and honestly filled out the exam paper of the flying section. He was not afraid that the flying section would do something to him, but he was afraid that this master would be unhappy, and when the time came, the entire exam would be disrupted, and then it would be troublesome. After all, this time the Chunin exam, not only Konoha's students, but many small villages came to participate, and even students from Sand Ninja Village, one of the 5 major countries. That is to say, this Naka Ninja exam is related to the contest between the 2 major powers. Although the Land of Wind and the Nation of Fire are allies, there are still conflicts of interest, and passing such an exam to let the other party see the power of the new generation of their ninja village can also play a certain deterrent role. A moment later, Mori Hibiki gave the exam paper to Fei Duan, which neatly filled in the answers to each question. Mori Hiki was secretly glad in his heart. Fortunately, this time the question was written by myself, otherwise it would be a lot of fun. Fei Duan replied softly, and then stopped paying attention. The reason why he wanted to let him help him with the exam papers was completely because Fei Duan was bored and felt that he was being tricked. In addition, he knows that Mori Hibiki has not released the last killer tool. This exam paper actually has no effect at all, and the last question given by Mori Hibiki is the most important thing in the entire exam. Episode 77. Time passed silently, and as Kankuro returned from a proctor to the bathroom, Mori Hibiki finally released his big move. Then it's time to announce the title of question 10, Mori said seriously. The examinees in the audience also looked at him intently, and the candidates obviously understood that this 10th question was a very critical question, otherwise they would not have waited so long to give the question. Only Fei Duan looked at Naruto, who was still full of entanglement and cheating on the side. For Naruto, the current crane tail, Fei Duan was really unable to spit on this protagonist who opened the hanging, obviously a very idiotic look, but the explosive growth of strength in the later stage really made those people at the same time feel helpless. Before announcing the title of question 10, I must first explain the rules of question 10. Mori Hibiki paused, then continued. The rules are simple. You will be faced with a choice between answering or not answering the 10th question. If you don't answer, it's very simple. You fail this exam, but you can still take the next zonin exam. However, if you choose to answer the question and answer it incorrectly, you will always lose the opportunity to take the Chushinobi exam. Mori Hibiki's voice turned cold and terrifying. Wow. The entire examination room was in an uproar in an instant, and I didn't expect that the examiner actually played such a desperate operation, which was really caught off guard. By what? What qualifications do you have to decide all this? When someone refuted, they subconsciously ignored the fate of the previous 3 brain dead. By what? The examiner of this first exam is me. Mori Hibiki instantly appeared in front of the candidate who made a rebuttal voice and knocked him to the ground with a punch, removing his exam qualifications. Still with my strength. Do you understand? Mori Hibiki said coldly again, so that the candidates present did not dare to make different sounds. The examinees fell silent. As a ninja, strength is the key. Without strength you can't even speak straight, but with enough strength, you can act recklessly, and no one can treat you well. Fei Duan, don't be hurry up and finish the selection for the next one. Mori Hibiki, yes. All the candidates, if you have the strength, you can do whatever you want. All the candidates had a desire to become stronger in their hearts, just because of the humiliation brought by the weakness they felt in today's Chunin exam. The threat of permanently not being able to take the Chunin exam was still quite effective, and one after another some people chose to give up. But there were still 78 people, or 26 groups, left. Under the pronouncement of Mori Hibiki, he directly passed the first round of assessment. Everyone was moved by Mori Hiki's final explanation and was deeply touched, except Fly Segment. In Fei Duan's opinion, what he said is bullshit. Only living is the last word. As the saying goes, keep the green mountain, not afraid of no firewood. If you know that the danger is deadly but have to summon up enough courage, then you are a fool. Fei Duan is very desperate, so he does not agree with the concept of Senai Biki at all. And Faden has also heard a saying called, good people do not live long, and disasters are left behind for 1,000 years. He really deeply agrees with this sentence, so he also strengthens his belief in being an evil god. After all, only bad people live long, don't they? As the first exam came to an end, the main examiner of the second exam, Mitarashi Azuki Bean, appeared in an embarrassing way. He pulled a banner with a shuriken and read the opening statement in an extremely embarrassing tone, causing a flock of crows to fly through the hearts of all the candidates, followed by a long list of ellipses. Fei Duan stared with interest at the woman in front of him who had a personality similar to Naruto, but a disciple of Orochimaru, and was the only guy who had accepted the heavenly curse seal without dying so far. Most importantly, Fei Duan had an interesting idea. What would be the funny scene if Orochimaru met his apprentice in the Forest of Death? Although Fei Duan did not stop the Great Snake Pill's plan against Sasuke, it did not prevent him from adding a little difficulty to the Great Snake Pill. If he couldn't even deal with his own disciples, then he was not a Lingjun Great Snake Pill. Follow me. Mitarashi Red Bean walked out first. She didn't know Fei Duan, and naturally she didn't pay any special attention to Fei Duan. A group of candidates also came together with their companions and followed out. Shino the Oil Girl and Inazukaya also honestly followed behind the flying section. They were ready. This exam is estimated to have no chance for them to shoot. There is the big pervert of the flying segment. These guys who are not even able to be considered medium tolerance. If they can escape from the hands of the flying segment intact, it will be considered a big skill. Even Akamaru had a depressed expression on his face. It should be their shining Chuninja exam, but now because of the flying section, they have all become spectators. How can they feel better? Fei Duan naturally saw the frustration of the 2-in-1 dog, thought about it, and said to the two, after entering the forest of death, you can act alone, and you won't get any exercise with me. Yes, teacher. Shino and Inuzuka immediately replied in high spirits, and even Akamaru excitedly snorted twice. Although there is one Hinata's combat power missing, as far as the two of them are concerned, they are not crane tails like Naruto. They are both elites with a unique family heritage. Even if they are 2 teams and 3, there is not much pressure. Although there is one Hinata's combat power missing, as far as the two of them are concerned, they are not crane tails like Naruto. They are both elites with a unique family heritage. Even if they are 2 teams and 3, there is not much pressure. After walking for a long time, they came to a forest surrounded by a tall iron net, and in the middle of the forest was a towering tower, which was also the place where their final mission was completed. This is the second exam room known as the Forest of Death. Next, Mitarai Azuki explained the rules of the second exam to the candidates, and the flying section on the side listened to drowsiness, yawning. These already known rules, it would be offensive to listen to it again. Second assessment, begin. With a shout from Mitarashi Red Bean, the second assessment officially began, and the candidates were taken to an entrance and then entered the Forest of Death. Episode 78. All the candidates entered the Death Forest from different directions in turn, but Faden waited for everyone to leave and walked alone in front of Mitarai Red Bean. It's you, why don't you go in yet? Mitarai Azuki recognized Hida at a glance, this guy who was absent-minded when he talked about the rules himself. If it weren't for the fact that she was the chief examiner, and Fei Duan didn't have any confrontation, Mitarai Red Bean would have to teach this guy a lesson, and what she hated the most was such a guy who didn't respect others. Red Bean, I have something interesting to tell you. I don't know if you want to know it. Under the mask of the Tengu of the flying section, there is a hint of playful smile. As soon as he heard the name Red Bean, 3 black lines were hung on the brain door of Mitarashi Red Bean, and a faint anger grew in the bottom of his heart. We don't seem to know each other very well, either call me Examiner-sama, or call me Honda-sensei. Mitarai Red Beans almost gritted his teeth and said this sentence. This self-cooked and lazy guy really made Mitarai Red Beans fire. It's true that we don't know each other very well, but I know your teacher very well. Fei Duan deliberately hung the nature of Mitarashi Red Beans and said. Also, Fei Duan is really not familiar with this cheerful woman, and in the entire plot, Mitarashi Red Beans rarely appear. How can he possibly understand? It can be said that Hidan knows something about every other famous Hokage character, but he really doesn't know anything like Mitarashi Red Beans. However, after hearing Fei Duan's words, the whole person trembled like a sieve, her eyes constantly changed, and all kinds of complex emotions were revealed until she slowly calmed down, and then the whole person was like a cold poisonous snake, calm and terrifying. You, who exactly? Mitarashi's voice was different from the usual sunshine, but now her voice was full of mori cold. Me? Of course, I am a glorious and excellent junior ninja candidate. Fei Duan replied in the tone of an excellent young pioneer, like that, but sincere. Mitarashi Azuki Beans. In particular, this person is afraid that he is not sick. What is your relationship with the Great Snake Pill, or how do you know the Great Snake Pill? Mitarashi Red Bean changed his way and directly inquired about the connection between Fei Duan and the Great Snake Pill, wanting to get the news of the Great Snake Pill from the Fei Duan. Mitarashi Azuki stared at the Tengu mask of the flying segment, as if to see through the face under the mask and get the answer he wanted. As for what I have to do with him, you don't need this, but I can tell you another news that interests you. Fei Duan's tone revealed the meaning of seduction, knowing that Mitarashi Red Bean paid a high degree of attention to the Big Snake Pill. After all, she was a ruthless character who wanted to die with Pill. You say, what news? Mitarai Red Bean still endured it. This mysterious teenager made her a little confused. The teenager's body seemed to be shrouded in one, so that she couldn't see through the strength of the other party at all. Hey, remember that man from Kusanagi village who just handed you a shuriken with his tongue? The flying segment dialed slightly. Mitarashi Azuki instantly recalled the scene that had just happened. She used her shuriken to teach Naruto, who did not know the height of the sky, and the shuriken slashed through the back, cutting off the hair of the Kusanagi village man, and then the man used his long tongue to roll the shuriken back to her, and she warned the other party not to suddenly stand behind her. As soon as the flying section was dialed, Mitarashi Red Bean instantly felt a chill, and after a long time, she had already forgotten the habits and characteristics of the Big Snake Pill. Only a cold snake can stick out its tongue at any time. Mitarashi Red Bean secretly scolded himself as an idiot, and others mixed into the Zonin exam in front of themselves, and they actually didn't notice it, which is simply a great dereliction of duty. Suffered. They are in danger. Suddenly, Mitarashi Red Bean exclaimed, and there was a faint feeling of bad premonition in his heart. You hello to yourself. Mitarashi Red Beans don't know what to say to the flying segment. After all, now the Big Snake Pill is important. A flying section she can't care so much. She doesn't think that the flying section is more terrifying than the Big Snake Pill. After all, as the apprentice of the Big Snake Pill, she has a deep understanding of the Big Snake Pill. That gloomy and deep man, the man who was like a poisonous snake, had an indelible memory in the heart of Mitarashi Red Bean. She touched the mark on her shoulder, the thing called the Heavenly Spell Seal, which gave her strength and made her recall the pain she had had. And it was Orochimaru, the man who betrayed Konoha. Brush. The figure of Mitarashi Red Beam disappeared in place and entered the forest of death. Her heart was very anxious. She didn't even have the mind to report to her superiors. If she didn't quickly find out the big snake pill, this time the students who took the Zonin exam would be dangerous. As soon as he thought of this, Mitarashi's feet once again increased his speed. Seeing the Mitarashi Red Beams leaving quickly, Fei Duan's face showed a satisfied smile. It is really a happy thing to be able to cause trouble to others, Fei Duan thought, and then also walked slowly into the forest of death. Why are the forests of this world so luxuriant? It's really disgusting to make the trees cold and damp. Fei Duan wandered aimlessly in the forest of death, complaining weakly. The plants of the Hokage world are too vigorous, and under the airtight forest, the sunlight can hardly shine in, which makes the flying section who has always liked sunny become a little gloomy. Awkward. Suddenly, there was a sound of crackling in the surrounding grass, and Fei Duan clearly sensed the existence of 3 people, waiting for his arrival in the grass in front. Is this targeting a player who has fallen behind? Fei Duan thought secretly, and a wicked smile hung at the corner of his mouth. And the 3 people in the grass, looking at the flying section that walked into their trap step by step, there was a smile on the corner of their mouths, and the prey was about to take the bait. However, poor them, they actually don't know who is the real prey. Episode 79. Fei Duan walked forward straight, not noticing anything unusual at all. In fact, with a mask, others could not see anything unusual about him. Syllable. A slight sound came from under the foot of the flying section. Hit. The 3 people in the grass shouted excitedly, and then the 3 immediately took out several shurikens from their shuriken belts and shot them above the head of the flying segment. Dozens of shurikens flew along the position above Fei Duan's head with a whistling sound, leaving no trace. The 3 rubbed their eyes with their hands, a look of complete disbelief. What they had calculated accurately, but completely failed, and what made them feel most terrifying was the rope trap they created. The strange scene made them completely unable to believe their eyes. I saw that the flying segment stepped on the rope trap unexpectedly, and the small rope sleeve should have tied the left foot of the flying segment, and then pulled it up and hung it upside down in the air, and then the shurikens of the 3 would shoot the flying segment into a sieve. However, they could not have imagined that the rope sleeve passed through the body of the flying section as if through the air, and there was not even a trace of waves, which is why their shurikens were all lost. Old boss, or let's withdraw, this guy is really weird. The short ninja with a thin body trembled to the people around him and said, as a group of soy sauce ninjas, when had he seen such a high-end ability as Kamui? Withdraw retreat. The person known as the boss glanced at Fei Duan unwillingly, originally thinking that 3-1 could subdue the other party, but as a result, Fei Duan's strange ability instantly startled the 3 of them, and they could only choose to retreat unwillingly. Shout. 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 After shooting 3 shurikens at the position where Fei Duan was standing, the 3 of them were ready to slip away. Fei Duan looked at the 3 shurikens flying towards him with a smile. Without the slightest intention of dodging, the shurikens went straight out of his body without the slightest hindrance. There is nothing wrong with the IQ of these 3 people. Knowing that they have such a strange ability, they actually waste shurikens and do not want money? Thunder, Chidori flow. Fei Duan's hand burst out a blazing white thunderbolt, emitting the sound of 10,000 birds chirping in unison, and then slammed to the ground, and a cloud of thunder and lightning rushed towards the 3 people. The 3 of them watched the lightning attack at great speed, and when they were about to jump into the air to dodge, the thunder and lightning had already enveloped the 3 of them. But Coco evil. Poof was directly screamed by the thunder, and the 2 words were stammered by the electricity. The 3 people's electrified hair stood upside down, and a puff of black smoke came out of their mouths. They lost their mobility, and they lay on the ground, their limbs twitching. Alas, why run away? Let me clean up and finish, why bother? Fei Duan said with a disappointed face, as if they didn't run, Fei Duan would easily let them go. Wouldn't that be a fool, would it? Fei Duan looked at the 3 people who were constantly twitching with some doubts. He didn't intend to kill these 3 guys, small fish and shrimp like this. Killing will not bring many killing points. It is better to let them bring a little joy to this lifeless forest. It seems that he was really electrocuted into a fool. Anyway, it has been scrapped, then it is better to kill. Fei Duan looked at the slightly bluffed eyes of the 3 people on the ground and said deliberately. As soon as the 3 people on the ground heard this, a carp immediately jumped up and said excitedly with a scorched black face and an explosive head, "We are not stupid. We're not stupid." Fei Duan touched it with his hand and pondered for a moment. How to prove it? Soy sauce 3? The 3 of them almost didn't have a mouthful of old blood spurt out. Proof? Do we still have to go to the medical class to open a certificate that this person is not a fool? However, the 3 of them really can't stop saying a tough word, such as what to kill or listen to the honor and the like. After all, how old are they? And the good youth has not yet been spent. How can they be willing to die? This is trouble, Fei Duan said deliberately, raising the hearts of the 3 people to their throats. For bullying Xiaoming Xin like this soy sauce trio, Fei Duan really felt that the thief had a sense of accomplishment. It feels like playing a game, driving a full level of tuba, and teaching them the thrill of being a human after being provoked by a group of eye-opening little cute newcomers. Forget it, I won't play with you. Fei Duan hesitated again and again, There are still many little Mingxin waiting for him to be lucky, and he can't waste too much time with them. As soon as the three of them heard Fei Duan's words, they suddenly felt light, and felt that the whole person was fluttering, and this master was finally willing to let us go. However, the next moment, monthly reading. Honestly, let me stay here. According to the 8th set of national primary and secondary school students, radio gymnastics and the illusion to give me exercise. The body is not good. How to be a ninja. Fei Duan looked like he hated iron, but not steel. And the three people caught in the illusion obviously can't respond. They are in the illusion at this time looking at the coach who calls himself Xiaoming in front of them with a confused face, and is seriously teaching them to learn the 8th set of radio gymnastics for primary and secondary school students in the country. If they do not follow the actions of Coach Xiaoming, they will face a day trip to the Knife Mountain, the Sea of Fire, and the Frying Pan by the way. In the illusion space, time is arbitrarily manipulated by the flying segment, and with the eternal kaleidoscope, the moon reading of the flying segment can be said to be much stronger than that of the Uchiha Itachi, and the duration is also much stronger. The soy sauce trio can only honestly learn from Coach Xiaoming in the illusion, and their bodies are also manipulated by the flying illusion to do the 8th set of national primary and secondary school students radio gymnastics. This is a bit of a good student. Look at this posture. It is much more standard than my elementary school classmates. Fei Duan had a scrutiny on his face, nodded with satisfaction, and then took out the Book of the Earth on the three people, put it into the Shenwei space, and then left lightly, leaving only 3 soy sauce parties standing tirelessly in place doing shameful radio gymnastics. Episode 80. As we all know, the Forest of Death is full of danger and anxiety, and all the candidates who enter the Forest of Death are cautious, afraid that they will be planted in it if they are not careful. However, as time passed, something strange seemed to have happened in the Forest of Death, which was simply bizarre. In the Forest of Death, there was actually a large number of candidates doing an unknown sport, and every time such a person was found, they would see 3 or 2 people in groups, looking serious and meticulous about doing sports they did not understand. At first, the other candidates thought that this was just their conspiracy, a conspiracy to trick others into taking the bait, and they did not dare to approach it at will. But as time went by, they found more and more such people. They understood that this was not a conspiracy. So, what is it? They have also guessed that it is an illusion, but they can't even see the figure of the spellcaster, and the illusion must be supported to maintain it. Therefore, they denied the speculation of illusion. How did they know how powerful the flying segment was? And they could only treat this matter as a strange event in the Forest of Death, making the remaining candidates more and more cautious. What made them feel most uncomfortable was that all the candidates who were doing broadcast gymnastics, the heaven and earth scrolls on their bodies disappeared one after another, which made them believe that this matter was not done by other candidates. Because, who would have nothing to take so many scrolls into their hands? Wouldn't it be better to go to the central tower early in the morning to complete the assessment, and win the first place in the second exam? How did they know how boring the flying section was? And the flying section didn't take the Zhongnan exam to heart at all, just to have some fun. And the flying section has just solved another pair of soy sauce squads at this time, but instead of letting them do radio gymnastics, they have been replaced with cheerleading. After all, you can't always repeat the same game, can you? Of the 26 squads, I've already killed 18 squads, so I'm left with only 8 squads that should have been successful. Fei Duan stopped his steps and thought about it. Since he entered the Forest of Death, he began his crazy elimination plan. Anyway, these people will eventually be eliminated, so he should kick them out early. Now all that remains are Konoha's 12 Xiaoqiang, as well as the Kusanagi village squad impersonated by Orochimaru, the Oto Ninja village team, and the Sand Ninja village team and Orochimaru's subordinate Yakushi pocket team. I seem to have thought of a great idea to get rich. Fei Duan's eyes suddenly lit up as he walked. Now the extra heaven and earth scrolls are in his hands, and the rest of the squad is evenly matched except for the weakest in Oto Ninja village. And Orochimaru is likely to deliberately give the scroll to Sasuke after achieving his goal. After all, Sasuke Naruto did not fight after being played with by Orochimaru. In this way, there are still 5 squads to sell to them, and as for the oil girl Shino them, it can be regarded as a good for Hinata's class. Fei Duan has made plans to give these remaining 5 squads a big surprise. Let them feel the hardships of the world. Without money, it is difficult to move an inch in the world. After having a clear goal, it is obvious that you must be much more motivated, constantly shuttling through the forest to find a target that can be traded. Suddenly, 3 guys with Oto Ninja Village's forehead guards appeared in the field of vision of the flying section. Stop, that hunchbacked disabled you're ahead. Fei Duan shouted, and almost didn't let the 3 Oto Ninja Village squads jumping on the tree fall. Hunchback disability? When did Max Anvil suffer such humiliation? As the strongest of the 3 people in Oto Ninja Village, he was actually ridiculed as a hunchbacked disabled person, and the anger in his heart can be imagined. Thoth Anvil looked at Fei Duan with an unkind face, and the other 2 also stared at Fei Duan coldly, faintly having the intention to make a move. As the subordinates of the Big Snake Pill, they didn't know what kindness was. Kill him, Thoth Anvil said grimly. A one-eyed man exuded terrifying killing intent. A guy who was left alone actually dared to be so rampant. The three of them were in a positive triangle suit and slowly surrounded the flying segment, and the flying section just stood calmly in place, without the slightest movement. Can you listen to me? Fei Duan finally spoke again. After all, his ultimate purpose is to sell scrolls. As a businessman, what kind of system is fighting and killing? However, the three of Otonin obviously did not want to give Fei Duan a chance to continue speaking. The three of them put the flying segment in the middle, and the next moment they jumped up, one person with a shuriken in his hand to attack, although there was only one person in the flying section. But with the attitude of lion fighting rabbit and doing their best, they still chose 3 colleagues to shoot. Alas, business is not good. Fei Duan sighed helplessly, looking at the shuriken that was about to pierce his body. Fei Duan's figure moved. In the trance-like eyes of the three of Oto, they all felt a sharp pain in their abdomen, and then flew out in the air and fell heavily to the ground. Fei Duan doesn't want to continue playing with them. There is only 1 day left in the 5-day assessment time, and there are still 4 gold masters in Fei Duan who have not yet been found. The 3 of them stood up with pain in their abdomen, and for the first time found that there was such a strong guy as Fei Duan hidden in this assessment, and the 3 stared at Fei Duan with guarded faces, for fear that he would suddenly attack the next moment. The speed of the flying segment is simply unexpectedly fast for these subordinates. How can they possibly catch the figure of the flying segment with the naked eye? Can you listen to me now? Fei Duan looked at the 3 people with a guarded face. I'm here to give you a chance to advance to the next assessment, and you just need to pay for it, or give me an IOU. Such a good thing. Why should you interrupt my conversation? What? What's the point? Could it be the dark stage of Konoha Village's Chunin exam? The 3 people of Otoha Village were completely stunned, and they thought that they had encountered the shady scene of Konoha Village. Then, they saw Fei Duan take out a large cloth bag out of nowhere, and Fei Duan threw it to the ground, and a large number of scrolls were scattered inside. Episode 81. I know, dazzling. Is this all an assessment scroll? Max Anvil looked confused. One-eyed glared at the boss, and his heart was filled with thick doubts. Sax Stirrup and Jean Mallet also looked speechlessly at a large pile of scrolls on the ground, and the Heaven and Earth scrolls were all in it, a full of 18 copies. Are you really sent by Konoha to engage in shady scenes? Thoth Anvil couldn't help the curiosity in his heart, asked, and at the same time sighed in his heart. Sure enough, there are all kinds of birds in the village. Flying segment, is this treating me like a scalper? I killed the other 18 teams, and I taught them a set of profound and charming cardio cheats by the way, Fei Duan explained with a big grin, and asked a little impatiently, do you buy it or not? If you don't buy it, then you can die. Saying that, Fei Duan's voice turned cold, and the eyes under the mask looked at them coldly. In the eyes of Fei Duan, buyers who cannot trade are not called buyers. At best, they can leave a whole corpse. The cold sweat of the 3 of them flowed down. They had already felt the horror of this guy, and the strangely fast speed was completely irresistible to them. Coupled with the candidates they found along the way who practiced mechanically and carefully like dementia, in connection with what the takeoff section said, they instantly sweated. This guy is really strong and bizarre. We buy. Thoth Anvil immediately agreed, for fear that they would be killed if they answered slowly, but they were not afraid of death, but they had not yet completed the task assigned by Lord Orochimaru, and they were not willing to die like this. Suddenly, Thoth Anvil's face suddenly darkened, and he said to Fei Duan as if he had eaten a dead child, we no money. Didn't they just come to take the Zonin exam, or did they come with a task? Where would they think that there would be money useful? They can say that they are. Their pockets are cleaner than their faces. However, unlike the furious appearance of Fei Duan in their imagination, Fei Duan did not look angry at all, but said with a kind face, didn't I tell you that I can make an IOU? Just give me an IOU. Hearing Fei Duan's explanation, the 3 of them looked at Fei Duan suspiciously, and their eyes were full of uncertainty. I'm afraid this guy is not a neuropathy. After the Zonin exam, we all returned to Oto Ninja Village, which is the territory of the Big Snake Pill. Do you dare to go to us? You know, in their hearts, the Great Snake Pill is their supreme god, and his strength is unmatched. Hurry up and sign this IOU, and then you can run with the scroll you need. Fei Duan said impatiently, these people are really grinding and delaying themselves for a long time. If they were not the first customers, he would have killed these guys who finally received the bento. Sign. I'll sign right away. The IOU that Max Flying Duan had prepared in advance. However, the next moment, he was confused, especially what was written on it. 3 generations of Wind Shadow Cells. The 3 of them were confused. What is this? I thought that the other party was just a simple blackmail, but I never expected that the other party wanted something so strange. However, they don't care if so many ghosts know if they drag it on, whether the other party will do something themselves. You must know that the other party has already seemed extremely impatient. In order to make Fei Duan satisfied, all 3 of them signed their names on the IOU. The face under the Tengu mask finally showed a smile, took the IOU, took out a scroll on the ground and threw it to the 3, and then left under the happy eyes of the 3. Good harvest. It's still quite simple to do business. It seems that I have the potential to become a big boss. Fei Duan looked at the IOU in his hand, and pouted. For this second assessment to choose the method of snatching the scroll, Fei Duan really felt a lot of love. After all, there are not many opportunities to be able to glove White Wolves empty. Hidan once again embarked on a journey to find the remaining squads, and with his continuous efforts, the only team left in the Sand Shinobi village had not yet been found by him, and all the other squads of Konoha. The other two squads knew Hidan, and knew his strength. So they honestly signed the IOU and entered the tower to complete their mission. My god, did I love Luo and this guy hid underground? How can I not find it after searching the forest of death? What the hell is this? Fei Duan hung upside down on a tall tree, and he thought helplessly that the death forest was not big, but Fei Duan couldn't find these three guys. According to my Ailua's personality, they shouldn't hide either. Why is that? Fei Duan really couldn't figure it out, so he had to helplessly move towards the tower. Since he couldn't find it, he could only do it. After all, the time was up, and Fei Duan had to go to meet with his two disciples. He had already asked Shino and Inuzuka to go back to the mission in advance, and he only needed to meet them now. But when Hidan walked to the tower, he found that Iero, Kankuro, and Temari were all squatting in front of the tower with dejected faces. And with the appearance of the flying segment, their faces finally showed a hint of joy, and they looked at the flying segment with excitement. Hey! Want to reel? 5-fold off sale. A bright smile also appeared under Fei Duan's mask, and he finally figured out what IAI Luo couldn't find for themselves. Almost all the scrolls have been snatched up by themselves, and those who bought the scrolls before them have already entered the tower, and I love them to look embarrassed, because there are no scrolls for them to grab. This is actually the existence of the strongest team at the moment, but they almost didn't even qualify for the final. How can the three not be depressed? They can only wait here at this last time, which is their only hope. It's you. It turns out that you did those people, IAI Luo said in a low voice, with an excited look on his face, which was a kind of excitement after meeting an opponent, and the feeling of joy at seeing the hunter. However, now that time is running out, they don't have time to engage in the showdown, because there are only 10 minutes left before the final end time. Let's make a price. I love Luo and said boldly, as the son of the fourth generation of Wind Shadow, money is just a number. Huh, I like a bold customer like you. Sign this, and the rest of the reals are yours. Fei Duan handed over an IOU, but the debt owed on it was not the so-called currency, or silver and gold. And as soon as I saw what was written on the IOU, my face suddenly changed, and Sun Lung killed intent to lock the flying segment in front of him. But he still signed his name, and then said to the flying segment full of killing intent, hopefully, you can live to get the debt I owe. Then, IAI Luo entered the tower with a required scroll, and Fei Duan looked at the IOU in his hand, and saw that it said, IAI Luo owes Fei Duan half a tailed beast Ikkyo Moritsuru. Episode 82. Ikkyo Moritsuru's half. Next you can grab something else. The flying segment turns the IOU in his hand into flying ash, and he doesn't care about whether the IOU exists or not, but he just thinks that such a transaction is more interesting, and the other party cannot refuse the transaction, which is the style that the flying section has always been strong. All he wants is my AI Luo signature, so that people can get a sense of satisfaction, and the flying segment can also take a tail from my AI Luo's body even if it is forcibly taken. But because the flying segment is still a little jealous of blackness, he came up with such a attention. Even, Fei Duan specifically went to learn the sealing technique on the Book of Seals, the 4-elephant seal, and it was with this sealing technique that the original 4 generations of Hokage sealed the 9 tails into Naruto's body, and he himself was devoured by the evil ghost sealed by the ghoul. And even the Yin attribute chakra with the 9 tails was devoured. And the Yin attribute chakra of the 9 tails is also part of Fei Duan's current planning, and even Xiao Nan has been sent out by him, taking advantage of this time of the Zonin exam, to find that vital thing. With the information he got from the big snake pill, Fei Duan is still very sure that Xiao Nan can find it. The day passed quickly, and the remaining candidates ushered in their third assessment, the actual combat assessment. This is the most intuitive assessment of his ability. After all, as a ninja, strength is the key, so the rest of the ninjas are particularly attentive to this. The only exception may be the flying segment. He is thinking at this time, when the big snake pill carries out the Konoha collapse plan, he can take this opportunity to extract half of the one-tailed crane in my arrow's body, and then, the rest of the matter is not in his consideration. The flying section is very busy, especially after the Zonin exam. Almost all the plots began to explode, and all the strong people also appeared, which is a good time to harvest the killing point. In the end, after everyone's hard waiting, the list of the first round of the third match also came out, except for Hinata, who replaced Hinata and faced Hinata Ninji. The rest remained unchanged, exactly the same as the plot. Yakushi chose to abstain for fear of not being able to control himself, and there were just 20 people left, and the 2x2 duel entered the next round. The game soon went on hotly, and Hijuan also discovered Sasuke's problems in the arena. Apparently he had been won by Orochimaru and planted the heavenly spell seal, and Orochimaru seemed to have greatly affected Sasuke in order to use the power of the spell seal, and without using the spell seal, it would be much weaker than before. But even so, Sasuke himself was trained by Hidan to become the best among the middle ninja, and he still easily defeated his opponent Akatsukina and won the victory, but the spell mark on his body made him extremely uncomfortable. Even if Kakashi temporarily sealed part of it for him, it could not be completely lifted. However, Fei Duan was a little curious. He didn't see the figure of the big snake pill. That guy must have been harassed by the Matarai red beans that he ordered to find in the past. It seems that the big snake pill still can't do anything to this former disciple, and he didn't even come to watch Sasuke's match in the preliminary round. And the fact that Mitarashi red beans are alive after the Chunin exam is the best proof. Sasuke's strength is far beyond him in the same period, so for the heavenly curse seal, as long as he does not take the initiative to use it, then it will be suppressed for a longer time. But maybe it will break out in the duel with my arrow. I am looking forward to what can Sasuke of the heavenly curse mark force my arrow into like? Hidan unscrupulously thought that in the past, Sasuke used S-class ninjutsu ratchet to hit AI Luo, causing him to go crazy, and now although Hidan did not teach him Reish, but the A-level Chidori can be better controlled by Sasuke, and even in his time period, Chidori will even exert far more power than ratchet who he can't fully master. The next one, Hinata Hinatas to Hinata Ninji. Moonlight Swift pronounced the 4 words Hinata Hinata with some difficulty, and the other Konoha's battle teachers and the 3 generations of Hokage all looked at Hinata Ninji below with ashamed faces. For this genius, he will definitely be able to defeat Hinata and successfully advance, but he met the guy of the flying section, and he can only be considered unlucky. And Hyuga Ninji, as the most genius figure of the Hyuga clan's generation, how could he not understand who the boy in front of him with Tengu mask and silver hair with a shawl was? Just he is not willing. It's just that he is a few years older than himself, and he is also the successor of one of the 3 major pupil techniques. Why should he be so much stronger than himself? Please advise. Hinata Ninji bent down slightly and saluted, although he knew that he was not the opponent of the flying segment, but he still wanted to see how much worse he was from the flying segment. He did not believe that with his own effort, he would not be able to catch up with the man in front of him. Oh? Hida looked at Hinata Ninji with some surprise. Although this tragic guy is called a genius, he was repeatedly left behind by a crane tail like Naruto, and finally ended up dead, which is not sad. Hida probably understood what Hinata Ninji meant. It was the pride of being a genius, and he did not allow himself to lag behind the mind. Alas, it's a pity that the gap between me and you is simply the difference between Cloud and Mud. Fei Duan sighed. How lonely it was to be invincible. Fei Duan nodded slightly. Since Hinata Ninji took the initiative to ask for abuse, if he didn't make a move, it seemed to be a little too careless. Scold. The figure of the flying segment disappeared in an instant, leaving one after another after images in the air for a long time, which the flying segment had just comprehended. In fact, it is used to pretend, and it is a skill that is useless at all. But I have to admit that this visual effect still looks very good. The entire battlefield is a shadow of the flying segment, as if using multiple shadow avatars, surrounding Hinata Ninji in the middle. Hinata Ninji was located in the center of the storm, naturally feeling the heavy pressure. The white eyes that were almost 360 vision could not observe the figure of the flying segment, which could not help but make him a little desperate. Call. Hinata Ninji only felt a strong wind coming towards him, and then finally saw Hida smashing towards him with a fist in one hand, and he didn't even use his shuriken. Shame, bare hands have always been the patent of the Hyuga clan, and the other party dares to attack him like this, which is completely a contemptuous and disdainful attitude for the proud Hinata Ninji. Bagwazang, return to the sky. Hinata Ninji used his most powerful defensive technique, and with his own rotation, chakra formed a white spiral light shield without dead ends, which is also the defensive technique that the entire Hyuga clan is famous for, and there are very few people who can break this move. Episode 83. The audience outside the venue frowned one after another, and they couldn't think of any good solution for the all-round defensive trick of Bagwazang Hui Tian for a while. After all, it is the famous stunt of the Hyuga clan. Even if it is a flying section, this move is still very desirable. This is almost a small range of Shinra Tianjin, but the principle is different. However, for Fei Duan, as far as Hinata Ninji's level is concerned, the Hui Tian he released is completely unable to stop his attack, and Fei Duan's favorite thing is to defeat the opponent under the enemy's strongest means. After all, this is a clear indication of the opponent's heart. Click. The blue chakra spherical shield was shattered by Hida's punch, making a sound like glass shattering, and in Hinata Ninji's horrified eyes, Hinata's fist slammed into his chest. Boom. Hinata Ninji was blasted out by a punch and flew for more than 10 meters before falling to the ground and passing out. Young man, it's good to have arrogance, but you also have to look at the right talents. Not everyone you can catch up. Fei Duan shook his head. If it weren't for the fact that Hinata Ninji had signed his IOU and would have to pay himself a large amount of money before, Fei Duan might have let him feel what is called cheerleading 3-day tour. At that time, under the public, it can be said that it will be quite humiliating to do that cheerleading in public that is shameful to the people of the Hokage world. Hinata. When Moonlight Blaster really feels awkward to death, this guy who brazenly replaced Hinata, it's really a headache, and he can deal with a subordinate like Hinata Ninji, and he doesn't have the slightest demeanor as a master. Fei Duan walked back to the outside of the field and found that the 4th generation of Wind Shadows actually came to watch the battle, That look was staring at Sasuke naked, but no one could detect anything wrong with him. Orochimaru's camouflage ability could be said to be one of the best, but that gloomy temperament could not be concealed. It seems that it should be the entanglement of Mitarashi red beans, but unfortunately, Sasuke will not use the power of the heavenly spell mark for a while. But it should be when Sasuke confronts my arrow. Then it is difficult to say. The face under the mask of the flying section did not know what he was thinking, giving the other candidates a mysterious feeling. They always felt that this guy might be the biggest accident in this exam, because until now, his strength was a mystery, and few people had seen him make a move from beginning to end. And once the flying section shoots, it is a crushing advantage to win, which is really helpless and worried. If you run into this guy, will you also be killed by it? Obviously, their concern is certain. The flying section will definitely eliminate them mercilessly, and it doesn't even take too much strength. More than one punch counts me as losing. Soon, the elimination of the third assessment was over. Iai Luo's terrifying power, and Xiao Li's terrifying physical skills after opening the 8-door dungeon all made the audience feel terrifying. But fortunately, Xiao Li could only break out for a short time, and the sequelae were serious. That is, now among the remaining candidates, only Iai Luo and Hinata posed the greatest threat to others. And with the end of the elimination, Hida also found a new target of his own, the guy known as the Toad Immortal, or Lustful Immortal, to be exact. He returned to Konoha. And Fei Duan was going to meet Ji Lei, one of the so-called last three ninjas, and he also had what Fei Duan needed in his hands, the three immortal lands, where Miamu Mountain was located. More precisely, what Fei Duan wants to get is the psychic technique in Ji Lei's hand. Fei Duan does not want to sign a psychic contract with these toads, but has other plans. The three major immortal lands are what Fei Duan wants to seek, because each immortal land represents an immortal art, which is what Fei Duan craves. Konoha Village, female bathhouse. This guy really does this. Fei Duan looked at a middle-aged man with white hair and a red gown, who was outside the women's bathhouse at this time, through a small hole in a wooden board, looking at the spring scene inside with an excited expression. Jiraiya's whole body was in a state of excitement. How long? I don't know how long, only to see the graceful figures of the women in Konoha Village again. Zilai's face was red, like a big toad squatting in the small hole next to the board, a lewd temperament naturally revealed, so that the Fei Duan on the side couldn't help but twitch the corners of his eyes, especially worthy of the name of a lecherous fairy. Phaeton took out the camera he had prepared in advance. Note, although it is not common in the Hokage world, it actually has real-world technology. For example, the big snake pill is a strange thing. Click. 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 The flying section found a good angle and directly came to a 3-in-a-row shot, highlighting Zilei's lecherous and lewd temperament to the fullest, and the three big characters of female bathhouse in the background behind Zilai are also particularly prominent. O__O. Jiraiya's expression suddenly changed from a satisfied demeanor to this, mechanically turning around, only to see Fei Duan waving the camera in his hand, looking at him with a smile. Hey, Jiraiya, #yen%@. Do you know that secretly taking photos is infringing on the portrait rights of others? It's illegal. I also wanted to cry without tears, just returned to the village. I wanted to come to the material, but I was photographed, my own famous name. Zilai also looked at the silver-haired boy with a resolute face in front of him. The other party had a bright smile on his face, which made Zilai's eyes twitch, and the mother was still smiling so happily when doing such a thing. This is not an obvious rhythm to blackmail. As soon as he thought of the word blackmail, Zilai's face completely darkened. When was my toad immortal blackmailed? Zilai also looked at Fei Duan with a bad face, obviously planning to start robbing it. He still didn't believe it. What kind of waves could a little ghost head turn over in his hands? Fei Duan naturally saw Zilai's thoughts, and said with a smile, friendly reminder, you can't beat me, Jiraiya. I was actually given a friendly reminder by a little guy? I couldn't believe my ears, wondering if I was hallucinating. I couldn't bear it. The next moment, Zilai also thought of a good way. He wanted to let this hateful little devil see the horror of the toad immortal. Episode 84, Psychic. Jiraiya bit his thumb and used blood as a medium to perform psychic arts. Toad Bunta. As Jiraiya shouted, a huge red toad with a short knife wrapped around his waist appeared from a puff of white smoke. Rumble. Toad Wintai's huge figure fell to the ground, stirring up a puff of smoke, and the women in the women's bathhouse heard such a big movement and ran out one after another, and when they saw the mountain-sized Toad Wintai, they were so frightened that they fled, and some even fell to the ground with bath towels, just holding their hands at 3 points and escaped. The fleeting spring light made Jiraiya stand on Toad Bunta's head and couldn't help but bleed from his nose. Fei Duan looked at the scene in front of him speechlessly, and thought to himself, is this guy really trying to grab back the camera? Don't let the women in the bathhouse run out and feast her eyes. Looking at Toad Wintai's head again, Zilai's lewd expression, Fei Duan was a little more sure, this guy must be for this purpose. He released Toad Wintai, not for any camera at all. No help, this guy. Fei Duan secretly cursed, although he would not really do something to these women, but his yearning for the secrets of women's bodies could not be stopped. Zilai also stood on top of Wintai's head, and after watching the women leave, he reluctantly came back to his senses and looked at the flying segment. and the flying segment on the ground, looking at his eyes as weird, almost wrote 5 big words on his face: "You are deliberately dripping." Zilei's mood was instantly bad, and he didn't summon the majesty of the big toad at all, just because Fei Duan had just filmed his ugly appearance again. "You this gremlin." Zilei's hair is standing up. This guy is really not slackening at all, and he secretly shoots himself whenever he has the opportunity. Looking at Fei Duan's smug look, where is the slightest fear? He is speechless. Where is such a little ghost who is not afraid of heaven and earth? Is this his nemesis? Looking at the silver-haired boy with a smile on his face below, he has a toothache. To bully the small with this kind of thing, if it is outside, it will definitely be nothing, but this is in Konoha. If it is passed out, then it will be obtained. Jiraiya, one of the legendary 3 ninjas, actually bullied the children on the first day he returned to the village, and he still has to lose face. How? Would you like to come down and talk? Fei Duan shouted at the toad's head. The mother egg toad is too big, too far away. You don't need to shout, cannot hear. Zilei sighed weakly, and under the annoyance of Toad Wentai, he lifted the psychic technique, and the huge Toad Wentai disappeared in place. Toad Buntai has a favorability of -100. Damn, if you say it's recruited, you'll be recruited, and if nothing happens, let you go back, and play with our toads day by day? Anyway, Toadwin went back with a stomach full of resentment. Maybe he got his parents to sue him. Say, what exactly do you want? But I tell you, I have spent all my money on traveling around the world, and I have no money on me. Zilei also walked towards the flying section and asked the purpose of the flying section. Fei Duan looked at Zilei, who was approaching him step by step. There was a hint of playfulness in his eyes. He didn't think that Zilei would agree to his request so easily. His approaching steps, obviously planning to strike immediately after approaching, not giving himself a chance to resist. And just now the appearance of Toad Wentai. There are just some ordinary people living nearby. All of them are scared away, so there is no chance to do it? Therefore, Fei Duan does not plan to respond to Zilei. If he doesn't let this guy die, he must not be able to negotiate the conditions. And if he is one of the 3 forbearances, if he is blackmailed by a teenager, then it is even more humiliating to say it. Sure enough, when Zilei was less than 10 meters close to the flight section, he launched his own means. The art of chaotic lion hair. Jiraiya's white hair was like using the ultimate hair tonic, growing rapidly, and it instantly wrapped towards the flying segment. Looking at the white hair that was about to wrap the flying segment, a smug smile appeared on Zilei's face. The teenager is too young and arrogant. He has already thought about it. Once he controls the silver-haired boy in front of him, he will use the Limri seal to control him. Let him feel it well. What is called respecting the old and loving the young, and the difference between the old and the young. However, the next moment, he found that his thoughts were in vain, because the other party did not look surprised at all, but just stood calmly in place, as if he did not take Jiraiya's ninjutsu to heart at all. And in fact, the flying section with divine power really doesn't take most of the ninjutsu to heart. After all, you can't beat me, so I'm afraid of you. The white hair like a hedgehog swept away, but it caught the air, and the white hair continued to shuttle on the body of the flying section, but did not grasp the reality of the entity. This feeling made Zilei feel like he tried his best but punched the cotton, weak and helpless. Abominable Uchiha imp. As soon as he saw the divine power ability used by Fei Duan, he remembered who the silver-haired boy in front of him was. Although he traveled around the world, he still kept in touch with Konoha's news, and also learned about the existence and ability of Hida from the mouth of Sarutobi Hinata, and as the most trusted disciple of the 3 generations of Hokage, he was still qualified to know these news. Hearing the word little ghost again, Fei Duan's mood was instantly bad. Damn, obviously he is now mighty and domineering. Why do you always call yourself a little ghost? The flying segment is irritated, and the consequences are serious. Chidori. 10,000 birds chirped in unison, and Fei Duan grabbed Jiraiya's long hair with a crimson thunder in his right hand, and then, whoosh. Zilei was like taking ecstasy, and his body was constantly shaken by thunder and electricity, and as the flying section continued to increase the output of chakra, Zilei's body began to rise green smoke, and his white hair was burned black, and then until it turned into flying ash, he let the flying section stop. Poof. Zilei also spit out a smoke ring from his mouth, and wanted to cry without tears. Isn't it just to take a material, find who messed with me? And at this time, Jilei, a flowing white hair has been electrocuted into powder by Chidori, and a shiny bald scoop was born. Episode 85. Fei Duan looked at Jilei, who was constantly twitching on the ground, and nodded with satisfaction, still happy with the way he changed the nature of Chidori chakra. The original Chidori characteristic lies in the unstoppable terrifying piercing ability, but Fei Duan used this technique to enhance the power of thunder and lightning, which can make people lose the ability to move, rather than simply piercing the enemy. Previously, in the Forest of Death, Fei Duan used the Chidori flow to electrify the 3 soy sauces so that it was difficult to move, and against a strong person like Jiraiya, the electric power naturally had to be increased. And this also caused the hair, in Fei Duan's hand to be directly burned into powder by the ultra-high power voltage and current, and Zilei also had white and beautiful long hair, so he said goodbye to him. Now Zilei also looks very funny, with a big oil word guard on his bare head, as if a cover has been added to the light bulb, but this light bulb is a little too big, and the cover is deformed. Stop pretending, hurry up, let's get down to business. Fei Duan didn't look at Zilai, who was still lying on the ground. With this guy's physique, he was just electrified. How could he be lying on the ground and convulsing all the time, acting quite similarly? Aha, I actually saw it by you. How could my totem mortal be so easily defeated? Zilai also suddenly jumped up, squatting with his hands obliquely on the horse and looking like he appeared, laughing, not at all embarrassed before, and the originally bare head gradually grew, and immediately returned to the flowing level. Flying segment. It is worthy of being a man who uses his hair as 1,000 books. This god-level hair growth skill, if it is sold, it must not earn a large amount of money. After recognizing the flying section, he also accepted his fate. This is the same person who opened the kaleidoscope riding wheel. I like the man of Uchiha Itachi, and it is also a strange time and space ability. Grab and grab, fight and fight, can only admit defeat and let go like this. Well, everyone is from a village, or give me that camera. Zilai also looked at Fei Duan with a fawning face. He was really afraid that his photos would be circulated, so how to take materials in the future, others would know who he was as soon as they saw him, and how to peek at the little sister taking a bath. I only want one thing, and this one thing can be easily given to me for you. Fei Duan finally spoke, making Zilai also breathe a sigh of relief. What he was most afraid of was a strong person like Fei Duan. Regardless of it, if he wanted to see him ugly, then there would be no reason. Say it. What do you want? As long as I can take it, I can give it to you. Since it is also open-minded, for the sake of future happiness, this loss is nothing now. However, the next moment, Jiraiya's face became obscene, because he suddenly remembered that he really didn't seem to have anything to get his hands on, and the only thing he could take out was his original work, Intimate Paradise. Ahem, what? If you want my autographed book, you can just say it, nothing embarrassing. I think back then, Kakashi's birthday gift was given by me, but he happily accepted my autographed book. Zilai also thought that he guessed Fei Duan's thoughts, the kind of shyness that wants to read the little yellow book but is embarrassed to say it. Who are we? Can we not understand the flowery intestines of a young and ignorant teenager? Fei Duan's face turned dark. What did this old ghost think of himself? We still need to read. Our royal little maid, Xiaonan, doesn't have to do it as it seems? You better take your autograph and give it to Kakashi. I think he'll thank you, but I don't want this, Fei Duan said expressionlessly. This old rogue's way of thinking is too clear. And Fei Duan said that he was a little unable to keep up with such a brain circuit. So what do you want? I really don't have anything I can handle. Zilai also spread both hands, indicating that he is a poor bastard. I want the psychic technique you learned, the kind that just summoned the big toad. I don't have psychic beasts yet. I see that you are not bad at this. It's like looking for you to learn and learn. Fei Duan said it as a matter of course. He is like this. He wants to say it directly, and he never beats around the bush. Jiraiya, it turns out to be such a little thing. Are you threatening me by taking pictures? Can't you talk well? You have to come out like this. It almost didn't scare me to death. Zilai also complained madly in his heart. In his opinion, his reputation is much more important than what psychic, although his psychic skills are very strong. But even if Fei Duan learns, it will not have any impact on himself. The huge Miamu Mountain, powerful toads are still a lot. Then take out the contract, I'll sign it and try it. As soon as Fei Duan stretched out his hand, he knew that powerful psychic beasts needed blood contracts, and psychic beasts could only respond to the call through blood contracts when they knew who was summoning them. Unless you have the Eye of Reincarnation, you can directly kill the powerful psychic beast, and then directly control it with the ability of the Eye of Reincarnation. And the pepperfish left in the space of the blood sea of the flying section are doing this to keep it until now. No, this is the scroll that can sign a contract with Miamu Mountain. Once you sign the blood contract, with a little practice, you can sense the presence of toads from Miamu Mountain, and you can perform psychic. Zilai still took out the scroll decisively and handed it to Fei Duan. Fei Duan is not pretentious, directly opened the scroll, bit his finger, smeared blood on the blood contract. When the contract was signed, Fei Duan faintly felt the existence of Miamu Mountain. That is a magical place, inhabited everywhere with toads of different sizes, beautiful mountains and waters, and the environment is quite elegant. As soon as the blood contract was completed, Fei Duan felt that he could use Shenwei to achieve another purpose, that is, to teleport to Miamu Mountain. The existence of the blood contract is like giving Fei Duan a coordinate, which allows him to clearly feel the existence and location of Miamu Mountain, and Shenwei, who has the ability of time and space, can allow him to achieve the purpose of teleporting to Miamu Mountain. 3 major immortal lands, the second one has been found. Now wait for the Chunin exam to pass. Tsunade returns to Konoha to become the 5th generation Hokage. I can find the last wet bone forest immortal land. Fei Duan thought with some excitement that once the 3 major immortal lands were controlled by it, then once Fei Duan opened the Eye of Reincarnation in the future, wouldn't it mean that countless powerful psychic beasts would be controlled by it, almost comparable to the army of Dirt Rebirth? Episode 86, that's it? Fei Duan asked. It seems that this is too simple. The contract completed by smearing a little blood seems to be a little watery. Of course it won't be that simple, Zilai also explained. The blood contract is only a contract used to establish contact between the psychic beast and the spellcaster, and if you want to channel a qualified psychic beast, you need to practice constantly to complete. After a pause, Zilai continued, just like the toad Wentai I just channeled, he is the best among the toads in Miamu Mountain, and he can't be channeled at all without a lot of practice, and it is even possible that a complete toad can't be channeled. Zilai also looked at Fei Duan with a smug face. He was the pinnacle of toad psychic arts, and Fei Duan was just a little cute in his eyes, and this sudden sense of superiority made him feel very happy. Psychic. Under Zilai's still young demeanor, Fei Duan decisively used psychic techniques, and as the white smoke rose, a familiar big toad appeared in front of Zilai's eyes. It's you again. Jiraiya. What are you looking for me for? Is it to scare human women again? Toad Bunta's voice sounded like a drum, shaking the dust all around. Zilai also looked like he had eaten poop, and looked at the toad Wentai in front of him dumbfounded. Isn't this a little excessive? Zilai's heart was deeply shocked. Why did he only channel a small tadpole with only 2 hind legs and a tail when he was channeled for the first time, and Fei Duan used psychic for the first time to channel a heavyweight player like Toad Buntai? You're afraid you're hanging up. It's not me who is psychic, you don't know that he's standing on your head. Idiot Toad. I didn't say to Toad Wentai angrily, isn't this idiot Toad, because he used it to scare the little sister a few times and then save the beauty by himself. As for such an attitude to treat himself, being able to scare the little sister is your Toad Wentai's luck. Oh? Not you? Toadwen was too interested, and actually produced another toad psychic and summoned himself, but it wanted to test it to see if the guy above his head was worthy of the friendship of the toad family. Hey, the guy on the head, since he channeled me, he has to accept my test, and if he can't even pass my test, then you are not worthy of channeling us toads, Wentai said angrily, but it didn't see the speechless expression of Ji-Lai in front of it at all. Jiraiya, the test? In particular, this master in front of you is estimated to be able to give you all the. Sure enough, Fei Duan did not disappoint Zilai. He was looking at the toad under his feet with a gloomy face, thinking to himself, test me? Think I'm Naruto that guy? Besides, when is a psychic beast also qualified to test its owner? But now is not the time to kill these guys, but polishing it doesn't hurt, at least it will make them more obedient in the future. Jiraiya, have you ever eaten a barbecue toad? Fei Duan ignored Wentai's words, but looked at Zilai with interest and asked playfully, huh? Zilai also looked confused, and at the same time he had some bad premonitions in his heart, looked at Fei Duan's smiling face, and shouted loudly, you don't mess around, Toad Bunta is the son of the Miamu Mountain Fukasaku Immortal and the Shima Immortal. Fei Duan glanced at Zilai, nonsense. Can he not know the identity of Wentai? But so what? It's the son of the 6 Dao Immortals, and I have to roast it today. Abominable little ghost, do you know who you are talking to? Toad Wentai shouted angrily, and Jiraiya who was in front of him was also disturbed by the hurricane generated by its roar, and even a bucket-sized saliva sprayed onto Jiraiya's body. Jiraiya, I'm looking for someone to mess with. Is today my bad luck day? Zilai, who suffered a disaster, he didn't bother to care. Anyway, Fei Duan couldn't really kill Toad Wentai, not to mention that after the psychic beast was injured, it could be lifted and returned to Miamu Mountain, so Zilai didn't worry that Wentai would really do something. As for Fei Duan, he was very decisive. Susanoo. The pale blue skeleton instantly appeared on top of Toad Bunta's head, and then gradually condensed Chakra's flesh and blood, turning into a complete giant form, but not really a complete body Susanoo, but an extra pair of feet to be able to walk. But this alone is enough, not to mention that the flying section does not want to expose too many things out. Boom. Rumble. The blue giant, which was much taller than the 9 tails, was the incomplete body of Kamui Susanoo, and he suddenly straddled the body of Toad Bunta under him, and the terrifying weight instantly crushed Toad Bunta to the ground, without moving at all, no longer having the majestic demeanor when he just appeared, but looked at Jiraiya with a look of horror, completely confused about the situation. Treat you to barbecue toads today. Fei Duan was located in the crystal on the giant's forehead, and shouted at Jiraiya on the ground. Jiraiya, ghosts eat toad meat, you still think it's a big bullfrog? Hida controlled Susanoo, condensed into a thick rope with chakra, slowly tied it up in Toad Fumida's terrified gaze, and then, fly Duan Toad Wentai brought to the forest where no one is. Fire escape, fire extinguished. A sea of monstrous fire fell from the sky, instantly turning a forest into a huge furnace, but the blazing temperature made the Toad Wentai who was carried in midair cool his vest. Specially, this person really wants to roast a toad. Help! Someone is going to murder the toad. Father! Mom! Come and save me! Toad Bunta let out a pig-killing cry and shouted hoarsely, and the huge sound caused the flames around him to spread out a lot. Hey, only now do I think of shouting for help. I'm afraid it's late. Fei Duan laughed evilly, holding the giant right hand of Toad Wentai, slowly lowering it down little by little, and the sea of fire approached Wentai's mountain-like body little by little, until the flames burned Wentai's back. Boom! Under the pain, when Tai successfully lifted the psychic summoning and returned to Miamu Mountain, this human being is so terrible, even the toad has to be roasted to eat. When Tai's psychology has received a huge trauma, it is estimated that it will not respond to anyone's tap or flying channeling for a period of time. Episode 87. Zilai now only feels that his whole person is not good. He is still the first time to see Duan Fei Duan like this. The first psychic summoned a powerful psychic beast, and as a result, he also beat the psychic beast back to the strange of Miamu Mountain. If he were a normal person, the one who did not offer the powerful psychic beast he summoned as a treasure, the best example was the Great Snake Pill, and every time he summoned 10,000 snakes, he had to offer sacrifices to him so that he could enjoy delicious blood. How can Duan Fei Duan be so violently coerced? This is simply not putting the psychic beast in his eyes. In fact, Fei Duan really did not put the psychic beast in his eyes. In his opinion, these are just resources that can be used, not impossible to destroy, especially if these resources stand on their own opposite. Moreover, Fei Duan looked for the location of the 3 immortal lands from the beginning, just to achieve his own purpose. As for the psychic beast, your own strength is the real strength. Do you see which one of the Uchiha spots, Uchiha belt soil, and thousand hand pillars has psychic beasts? Others rely on their own strength to fight a piece of the world, which is the real strong. Therefore, these so-called psychic beasts, in fact, are only finally used for the control of the animal road, and can be made into relatively good dolls to make the animal road strong. I said, should you give me the camera? After a while, Zilai, who came back to his senses, also cautiously asked Fei Duan. He was really afraid that this guy would regret it at that time. After all, in his opinion, Fei Duan was not a person who played cards according to common sense. Fei Duan really didn't disappoint Jiraiya, only to see that he lifted Susanoo, walked to Jiraiya, and said with a confused look, why should I give you the camera? I didn't want to give you the camera, did I? Jiraiya, hempwheat husk. Zilai suddenly remembered that Fei Duan only put forward his own requirements from beginning to end, and he never agreed to Zilai's requirements at all. Fei Duan looked at Zilai, whose face was constantly darkening, smiled secretly in his heart, and then said with an atmospheric face, for your sake of being so sincere, it is not impossible to hand over the camera to you, but what? Zilai also grabbed his head in a hurry, and he didn't care about the Fei Duan to continue to put forward conditions. Even if it was more conditions, he could only agree to who called his lifeline caught in the hands of the Fei Duan. In this way, there is a teenager named Naruto Uzumaki in the village. I owe him a favor, you can teach him the toad psychic art as well. Hidan once again stated his conditions, but this time it was for Naruto's sake. Because, with his arrival, the plot has changed. Naruto, who should have met the lecherous fairy, did not meet him, and the psychic technique passed down by the lecherous fairy is very important to Naruto in the first and middle periods. For Naruto's growth, Fei Duan can only let Jiraiya take the initiative to find him. No problem, I promised. Zilai also agreed to it in one bite. Isn't it teaching one sheep is to drive, 2 sheep are put together. The small camera flew out from the spatial vortex of Fei Duan's right eye, fell into his hand, and without the slightest hesitation, directly handed it to Zilai, without any appearance of regretting it again. Zilai took the camera suspiciously, repeatedly held it in his hand to observe, and found that it was indeed the camera that Fei Duan used to secretly photograph himself before, and immediately the chakra surged in the palm of his hand, and a blue wind attribute chakra ball was constantly rotating in his hand. Is this spiral pill? Fei Duan looked at the blue ball in Jiraiya's hand, although he was a little interested, but he didn't like this skill very much. Compared to Chidori, Fei Duan still liked to use Chidori more. He simply felt that the spiral pill was not suitable for him, so he didn't plan to learn. After the spiral pellet was formed, Zilai also decisively threw the camera into the air, and then a spiral pill smashed up fiercely, and the violent wind attribute chakra twisted the camera into tiny fragments, completely damaged, and there was no hope of repair. Phew, after destroying the stain of this life, Zilai also breathed a long sigh of relief. The heart that had been hanging was finally let go, and the whole person was much more relaxed. Maybe this is the so-called nothing to be light. And the flying section on the side sneered in his heart, and all his attention was on the camera, but he forgot to pay attention to the most important question, what about the film inside? In fact, what Fei Duan gave to Zilai was an empty camera, and the film in it had long been taken out by Fei Duan and placed in the blood sea space, waiting for when it would be taken out to disgust this lecherous fairy. After all, as an evil god, if he makes others unhappy, he himself will be very happy. After getting the location of Miamu Mountain from Zilai, Fei Duan returned to his home. I have to say that in the small courtyard without Xiaonan, Fei Duan always felt that something was missing. Maybe this is when a person is used to being accompanied by people, and suddenly alone will produce loneliness. But counting the time, Fei Duan estimated that Xiaonan should also be back soon, and she should return at the latest after the end of the Zhongnan exam. Today, the final of the Chunin exam is about to begin, and I wonder if it will change from the original plot. Fei Duan walked on the path to the arena and muttered to himself. He was looking forward to it. Whether Sasuke could directly force out my arrow's fake sleep technique, it made Hidan a little interested. why AI Luo forced Sasuke to use the power of the spell seal is unknown. In the final, Hidan was ranked first, and it was Naruto Uzumaki who faced him. No way, it was supposed to be Hinata Ninja and Naruto duel, but the bug of the flying segment was lost, causing Naruto's opponent to change to the flying segment, but Naruto had never seen the flying segment look when he wore a mask, and with his carelessness, he couldn't recognize the flying segment at all. Moreover, it can be said that the new generation of the entire village, it is estimated that only Naruto is the most backward in news, and the others have the cultivation and support of the family, and he only has one Ninetales. The first one is going to play, it's really boring, since that's the case, then help Naruto, let the seal of the Ninetales open some, by the way, use the moon reading to control the Ninetales in Naruto's body, so that he can help Naruto grow faster, and even directly become a real human pillar force at the fastest speed, so that I can achieve my purpose faster. Fei Duan calculated carefully, he spent a lot of thought for the growth of the two protagonists, but for his ultimate purpose, this is also helpless. Episode 88. The final venue is in Colosseum-like building with a circular battlefield in the middle, enclosed by a tall wall, surrounded by stepped spectator stands. On top of the stands sat daimyo from various powers, as well as spectators from different ninja villages, and at the top of the stands were the exclusive seats of Hokage and Kazekage, and two high-ranking people sat in their seats. There is only one guardian ninja besides Sarutobi Hibiki, while there are four of them on the side of the four generations of Kazekage, all of whom are actually impersonated by Orochimaru's subordinates in order to bind Sarutobi Hinata. With all the personnel present, I don't know that Genma began to announce the start of the final. The first one, Hinata versus Naruto Uzumaki. I don't know that Genma read out loud, he is not as embarrassed as the Moonlight Wind. Originally he would have been surprised and strange because he took the Zonin exam, but now there is another thing that makes him not in the mood to pay attention to the Chiao at all. That thing is the death of the Moonlight Whirlwind. The third Hokage even held a special meeting for this purpose, and he was one of the participants in it, and now the entire village of Konoha is on alert, and even in this arena, there are many members of the Dark Division stationed in case of a situation that may change next. The entire Konoha is now almost in a state of war mobilization, except for the roots belonging to the regiment. All the institutions are operating wildly, and the death of the Moonlight Wind has made Konoha, which has been calm for a long time, turbulent again. Hidan walked into the field along the dark passage, and Naruto had already rushed into the arena impatiently. He was the one who wanted to prove himself, and Hidan, the dark horse in the Naka Ninja exam, was the best stepping stone for him to prove himself. He is a man who aspires to become Hokage, the mysterious masked man that everyone else fears, and Naruto Coding is determined to defeat him and take the first step towards his success. Ready? Begin. Without knowing that with the order of the fire Genma, Naruto rushed towards the flying section like a wild horse out of control. However, how could Naruto keep up with the speed of the flying segment? Easily dodged Naruto's all-out punch, and then instantly appeared behind Naruto, and kicked out violently. Boom! Naruto was shot out like a cannonball, and then fell heavily to the ground. It hurts. Damn, how could his speed be so fast? Naruto's face was bitter melon-colored, obviously it hurt a lot just now. But with his recovery ability plus Fei Duan's remaining hand, it didn't have much effect. It seems that just physical contact does not allow me to observe the nine tails sealed in his body, then only through the seal located in the navel can I contact the yang attribute chakra of the nine tails. Through a simple trial, Fei Duan found that it was not so simple to control the nine tails. First of all, if it did not pass Naruto's seal, it would be difficult for Fei Duan to contact the nine tails at all, unless he killed Naruto and released the nine tails directly. Humph, it's fast, then I'll let you not look at my shadow avatar technique, see how you still run in the crowd. Naruto could only think of a stupid way due to the terrifying speed of the flying segment. After all, this competition field is so large, once Naruto's multiple shadow doppelgangers occupy the field almost equally, then the flying segment cannot be avoided. Although the idea is good, Naruto's current chakra obviously can't do this. So, Naruto hit the monster that was sleeping inside him. Hey! Stinky fox, lend me a little of your chakra. Naruto closed his eyes and spoke inside himself, hoping for a response. To Naruto's surprise, the nine-tailed demon fox actually gave him a huge chakra to support him in particular, and he faintly heard the demon fox's whisper, "Kill him. Be sure to kill him." However, because the four-elephant seal did not loosen in the slightest, coupled with the five-element seal of the big snake pill, Naruto could not hear the whispers from the nine tails at all, and the nine tails could only awaken briefly due to the reinforcement of the seal, and there was no ability to talk to Naruto directly. And the reason why he contributed his chakra to face so much this time was entirely because of the appearance of the flying segment, the power of the kaleidoscope chakra eye that made the nine tails familiar but unfamiliar, and was detected by the nine tails when observing Naruto in the flying segment. After all, it was previously controlled by Madara and Obito with the Sharingan, and now the nine tails are particularly sensitive to the power of the Sharingan, which comes from the hatred of the Sharingan in their bones, so that the nine tails lent chakra to Naruto without hesitation, and even whispered obsessively while he was sleeping, but unfortunately, Naruto did not hear it. Even if Naruto hears it, with his personality, it is impossible to kill people because of the competition. In fact, throughout the entire drama, it seems that Naruto has not killed people much. Fei Duan looked at Naruto, who suddenly changed his breath in front of him. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, under the eyes of the chakra. Naruto's body was wrapped in a faint red chakra coat, like 9 tails fluttering in the wind, but exuding a powerful aura. Unexpectedly, I actually popped out by myself, Fei Duan whispered. Originally thought that he had to use the 4-elephant seal to contact the 9 tails, but now that the 9 tails actually released his chakra, then the flying Duan could directly feel the existence of the 9 tails through the long-lost chakra, and then use Naruto's body to cast the moon reading, so as to achieve the purpose of controlling the 9 tails. After all, the current 9 tails fell into a deep sleep, and it can be said that when the spirit is the weakest, it is easier to manipulate. Multiple shadow doppelganger technique. Feeling the unprecedented vigorous chakra in his body, Naruto excitedly used his best ninjutsu, and he had a feeling that his shadow avatar this time might be able to occupy the entire arena. He was a little excited when he thought of this, and he wanted to see how this guy in the mask would run then. One after another, Naruto's phantoms appeared in the arena, and then turned into entities, and hundreds of Naruto shouted loudly together, "It's going to be on." Fei Duan shook his head helplessly. Naruto, this guy is really a little brainless sometimes. Knowing that he is fast, then he will definitely have the matching body strength. How can he be defeated by the shadow doppelganger who scatters with one blow? Sighing, Fei Duan found that Naruto is really a little worse than Sasuke now. As soon as he thought of this, Fei Duan's eyes froze. "Let me help you open your protagonist aura in advance." Episode 89. Hundreds of Naruto shouted in unison, rushed towards the flying section, and then jumped up and pounced on the flying section. The Sharingan eyes under the Hidan mask turned, and the strong pupil force allowed him to easily observe which one was Naruto's true body. Swish! The flying segment moved, with the speed of Shaoli opening the 8-door Duanjia, shuttling through Naruto's crowd. Under the extremely fast speed, Naruto's doppelganger seemed to be frozen by time, motionless in the eyes of Fei Duan. Boom! Fei Duan's figure quickly approached in Naruto's shocked eyes, but he didn't have time to react at all, and in the blink of an eye, Hidan pressed a palm on Naruto's stomach and knocked him to the ground. Abominable! The heavy force made Naruto unable to move. He did not expect that with the help of the power of the 9 tails, he was actually defeated so easily, and the speed of the person in front of him was comparable to Shaoli, who opened the 8-door Duanjia, which really made him a little desperate. "Got you." There was a somewhat familiar voice from under the mask of the flying segment, but he was grinning, but he couldn't remember who the masked man was. When Hijuan's right hand pressed on Naruto's abdomen, an evil and tyrannical chakra was clearly perceived by Hida, although it was a little weak, but his roots were extremely strong. "Naruto." Hibi let out a low sigh, and Naruto subconsciously looked at Hibi under the mask and met his eyes. "It's you!" Naruto exclaimed in surprise, and the moment he saw Hibito's Sharingan, he recognized his identity. After all, there are only 3 owners of the Sharingan on the bright side, and as long as the existence of the Sharingan is exposed, Naruto can easily recognize it. However, before Naruto could ask why, he fell into a state of confusion, and the whole person only felt that the sky was spinning, and his mind entered a strange place with the pupil force of the flying segment. With the confusion of Naruto's body, his doppelganger also lost his movements, and the original jumping and flying movements lost their accuracy, and they all fell to the ground, staying motionless in place. The entire arena fell silent. A group of doppelgangers surrounded Fei Duan and Naruto inside, and no one knew what happened, and Fei Duan at this time, his spiritual power invaded Naruto's sealed space, and his body temporarily stopped in place. However, if someone tries to hurt him, he will wake up immediately. "Fei Duan, what exactly are you thinking?" The 3 generations of Hokage in the stands looked at the quiet scene under the field, a little puzzled. As an experiencer of the 9 Tails Rebellion, he clearly knew that Sharingan's ability to control the tail beast. He had to worry that even if Fei Duan looked easygoing on weekdays, the pain caused to him by the 9 Tails was unforgettable, and the loss of Konoha in that battle was too heavy, and even the 4th generation of Hokage paid with his life. Unlike the worries of the ape flying sun, the 4th generation Wind Shadow, sitting on the side, also had an interested look flashing in his eyes, but he recognized at a glance who the masked man was under the scene, and he still remembered the terrifying power of the flying section. Now, he found that he seemed to have discovered the intentions of this suddenly appeared powerhouse, and he seemed to be particularly interested in the 9 Tails. "Where is this?" Naruto looked at the unfamiliar environment in front of him with a puzzled expression. There was a shallow curtain of water under his feet, and in front of him was a huge red wooden door, the center of which seemed to be a powerful sealing technique. "Naruto," the sound of the flying segment sounded behind Naruto. Naruto turned around in surprise and said, "Brother Fei Duan? How are you here too?" "No, aren't we racing?" Fei Duan walked up to Naruto with a calm face and said, "I brought you here, don't you feel familiar?" Familiar, Naruto fell into deep thought. The longer he took it here, the more he felt an inexplicable familiarity, as Hida said, as if this place was the one he often dreamed about. In his dream, behind the scarlet wooden door, in the darkness, there was a terrifying monster, a red fox with 9 tails. Remember, Fei Duan asked calmly. Naruto's body shook like a sieve with his constant memories, and a wordless fear permeated his heart. It was from the fear of the 9 tails, the fear of hiding a monster in his body. No need to be afraid anymore, because from now on, it will be your best fighting partner. The sound of the flying segment seemed to have magic, which made Naruto quickly calm down. Combat partner? The young Naruto was still puzzled. How could a monster like the 9-tailed demon fox become a combat partner? In his young heart, the 9 tails were synonymous with evil and destruction. Fei Duan laughed mysteriously and said, I will help you so that it can follow your instructions, and then you will be able to use its power at will. Oh, Naruto replied confusedly, a little confused. Hidan only used the moon reading to allow Naruto to accept the existence of the 9 tails faster, so that he could accept the 9 tails and use the 9 tails. Ignoring Naruto, Fei Duan walked straight to the sealed door that locked the 9 tails, and the whole person penetrated it like an illusory. 9 tails, Fei Duan called out in a low voice, and the whole person was now crawling in front of the head of the 9 tails, standing in front of the eyes of the 9 tails, calling for this existence that makes countless people fear like a nightmare. In the pitch-black sealed space, the 9 tails, who was locked by chains, slowly opened his eyes, and the figure of Fei Duan was reflected in the vertical pupils. Fei Duan's spiritual power projection also wore a Tengu mask, but the 9 tails still observed Fei Duan's eyes in the first instant. It's those evil eyes. The 9 tails were furious, anger made it lose its mind, and under the powerful seal, it still struggled, trying to tear the boy in front of him to pieces. However, the chain was so fixed that it could not be moved. The face under the mask of Fei Duan showed a hint of a smile. Looking at the struggling but helpless 9 tails in front of him, a trace of greed flashed in his eyes, but it was quickly suppressed by him. Now, not yet. Fei Duan's eyes instantly transformed into the appearance of an eternal kaleidoscope, and his hands began to be constantly imprinted, and chakra continued to condense in his eyes. Monthly reading. A pair of strange eyes continued to expand in the pupils of the 9 tails until they occupied the eyes of the 9 tails, and the 9 tails fell into calm, and there was no longer the slightest manic look. After using the moon reading, the flying section fell into exhaustion for the first time, and the entire mental power projection became illusory. However, a faint smile appeared on his face. It worked. His experiments. An experiment called Pseudo-Eternal Moon Reading. Episode 90. When upgrading the Eternal Kaleidoscope, Hidan chose Itachi's 2 abilities and possessed Itachi's Susanoo. However, how could the Eternal Kaleidoscope be a simple fusion of the ability of the 2 eyes? And when it came to promotion, all 4 abilities were greatly improved. And the control time of the moon reading has also increased greatly, and it is with this that the flying section has been continuously researched, and finally able to release the eternal control illusion similar to other heavenly gods. That is the illusion technique that it calls Pseudo-Eternal Moon Reading. Although it is very flawed, but it is just right for the existence of spiritual power that is not strong for controlling chakra aggregates such as the 9 tails. The consumption of this move is extremely high, even if the flying stage now has an extremely large chakra, but ninjutsu like this not only consumes the chakra, but also consumes a lot of spiritual power of the flying segment, and can only be used to control an existence like the 9 tails. But Fei Duan is still very satisfied. After all, after such a ninjutsu is released, there is no need to release chakra for control all the time, and the 9 tails will always be under their control, unless someone more powerful solves the illusion for him. After doing all this, the spiritual power projection of the flying segment disappeared into the sealed space. From today onwards, Konoha's 10,000-year-old crane tail will disappear, replaced by the terrifying 9-tailed pillar force, Naruto Uzumaki. Offset, Hidan came back to his senses, and Naruto came to his senses with the lifting of his illusion. Referee, I admit defeat. Fei Duan shouted, making a weak and tired look, as if his chakra had been exhausted. In fact, he is really quite tired, although chakra recovers quickly, but the mental exhaustion cannot recover quickly. I don't know that Huishwanma glanced at Fei Duan in surprise, a little puzzled, why this guy would give up. Naruto Uzumaki, win. Despite the doubts in his heart, I don't know that Hogenma still pronounced Naruto's victory. You, what exactly did you do? Ape Fei looked at the back of Fei Duan's departure and fell into deep thought. The 4 generations of Wind Shadow sitting on his left-hand side was also in doubt, and Fei Duan did not attack the 9 tails. He could feel that the 5-element seal he had planted had not been unlocked, so what did Fei Duan do? His heart became more and more interested in the flying segment. The match is still going on unhurriedly. Kankuro chose to give up in order to preserve his strength when he played against Shino the Oil Girl, and when Temari played against Shikamaru, Shikamaru threw in the towel because chakra was exhausted, and the original Oto Shinobi trio were the only ones who participated in the final. Because he wanted to prove his strength to the Big Snake Pill, he went to challenge my AI Luo privately, and was directly pinched to death by my AI Luo. So now, everyone has directly ushered in the most anticipated decisive battle, Sunfall's Aira versus Sasuke Uchiha. The duel between the geniuses of the 2 ninja villages is always so eye-catching, and even many daimyos who are watching the battle have made big bets for this. What's more, there were stupid people who tried to threaten my Ailua, only to be engulfed in cold sand. Because Sasuke learned enough powerful ninjutsu from Hido, before the final, He didn't go through Kakashi's special training or anything, but Kakashi temporarily sealed the heavenly spell seal for him. Don't let me down, Sasuke. Fei Duan returned to the audience and looked at the hostile duo below. He was quite looking forward to giving Orochimaru's Konoha collapse plan a little earlier, but that would have to be seen by Sasuke's performance. Above the highest audience, the 4 generations of Kazekage finally revealed his long-awaited gaze, and his gaze was unwilling to leave Sasuke's body for a moment. This perfect body that he had been waiting for a long time had already given him a great surprise in his previous performance in the Forest of Death. The more he looked forward to it, the stronger Sasuke was, the happier he was. This perfect body would eventually belong to him. Finally, after giving an order from the Fire Genma, Sasuke quickly rushed towards Iero, and the speed was much faster than when Shaoli opened the 8-door Duanjia. Iero also reacted quickly, and the sand around him turned into a doppelganger and attacked Sasuke. The sand turned into a doppelganger, and each attack was powerful, but Sasuke was even more ferocious, dodging, and smashed the sand doppelganger with one punch, turning it into scattered sand. Then, Sasuke quickly moved in front of Era's body, and the fist wind whistled. Iai Luo does not look afraid, he has a lot of confidence in his defenses, even if he has been broken by Shaoli. A sand curtain quickly condensed in front of my arrow, and I saw that Sasuke was about to bombard the sand curtain. Sasuke's left foot suddenly made a force, and the fist that was about to bombard the sand curtain came to an abrupt end, and then a sideways body appeared behind the sand curtain. A pair of scarlet 3-hook jade chakra eyes stared at him dead behind my AI Luo. Boom! The incredible punch directly hit my AI Luo in the face, and instantly blasted my AI Luo out, and fell to the ground under the buffer of a piece of sand. Click! Click! My Era's face was shattered like ceramics, and the armor of sand was actually broken by Sasuke so easily. Sasuke did not stop because of a small advantage. Fei Duan taught him, to deal with the enemy, no matter what the reason for the enemy, cannot leave the other party any space and room to fight back. Either kill him or destroy him. This Fei Duan is deeply touched, and the fight in the Hokage is good, and suddenly it will start to reason, which is simply speechless. And Naruto is even better at this, and he is invincible in the world with one hand. Nagato, Obito, and others were all told by him to want to die, and finally repented. In contrast, Fei Duan just wants to say that you can be persuaded in this way, then you were playing snakes in the first place. Sasuke is deep in the true legend of the flying section, and if he can do it, he is definitely not BB. His hands quickly sealed, and chakra surged out. Fire escape, how fireball art. A fiery hot fireball erupted from Sasuke's mouth and swept towards Iroh lying on the ground at great speed.